All right, everybody. Hey, thanks again. Another episode of COVID Questions. Ryan Bohm, Tanner Dance, founders at Core Capital Wealth Management. And today we've got Chad Albrecht, good friend of mine. He's the director of the MBA department up at Utah State University. That's our alma mater. We've got to give a shout out to Aggies. And really grateful to have Chad with us today. Great business mind and leader in the community. And so, Chad, from your perspective, I know obviously huge impact, COVID has had on the university and education in general, but kind of give us an idea of like what you're on the inside, what's it been like since, the governor said, shut this thing down and Utah State basically shut it down.
Yeah, well, Ryan and Tanner, thanks so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here and participate and provide some insight on what I've experienced at least in the Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University and kind of how the university has responded. It's been really interesting. We have never had a situation as long as I've been here, and I've been at Utah State for about 12 years now, where we have all of a sudden just had this external force that has just come in and kind of swept us off our feet. So if you would have said back at Christmas time 4 or 5 months ago that, hey, classes are going to go online, students are going to be rushed off of campus, sports, no March Madness, no NCAA, we would have thought you were crazy, right? And all of a sudden we're here in this situation where things are very different than what they were. We're seeing a huge transition for universities. We're seeing a lot of universities who are feeling the financial impact of COVID-19. We're seeing a lot of students who are skipping graduation after 4 years of hard work, or possibly more if they're, getting a master's or PhD. So no graduation. And it's just been really interesting to kind of both sit back and see this take place, as well as kind of be on the front line, see how it's impacting our classes, see how it's impacting our students, which is our single most important focus right now, is making sure that students are safe, making sure they're protected, making sure that we expose them to as little risk as possible, and then kind of seeing the response both at the university setting, both by students, both by faculty in the classroom and staff, and how they've responded to this.
So with the students, I'm trying to picture myself, up there right now. How have they handled it? What do they do? It's hard not to have that, office hours or something with the professor and just that, especially those upper level graduate classes, you're sitting in a more intimate setting. You can answer how is that working right now? Is everybody doing Zoom? Is it just?
Yeah. So we kind of got hit right. This really ramped up in end of February, March. And the university came and we saw this back east, a few schools doing it. Harvard did it and said, we need everyone off campus. That was before we even got close to shutting down. So they kind of said we need everyone off campus, dorms emptied, right? Everyone go home. As soon as it hit us and we decided to make this transition, you imagine you're in your senior class. It's a very intimate setting, upper division level course. And all of a sudden you're used to having a one-on-one or a lot of interaction with your instructor. And now you're doing videos kind of like we are today, where maybe the internet doesn't work very well. It's a totally different setting and you're not able to communicate and interact the way you'd like. There's also, a lot of pressure on students to get good grades. And for people that want an online experience, they're already going to an online program or an online school. And so to suddenly in the middle of a semester with all the other stresses going on, to suddenly go to students and say, regardless of your preferred learning approach, we're now going to force you to go on an online environment and complete your courses and do well, I think has been difficult for a lot of students, right?
Yeah. So do you feel like professors are having to be a little more lenient, or because I remember my senior year, a lot of group projects, a lot of presentations. How are they adapting? How do you feel like the professors are adapting to kind of this new reality?
So I think as a whole, it's been an adjustment for everyone, and that's life, right? If there's a skill set that we could teach our students, it's, hey, there's going to be factors from the external environment that come in and hit your business, that hit you individually, and you've got to learn how to respond to these and take control of the situation and respond accordingly. So I think that's a good skill set. At the same time, I don't think any of us would have chosen this if we, had the option. As a whole, I think faculty have done a really good job. As a whole, I think we have an environment, especially at Utah State University, where instructors care about their students. They want to see their students succeed. Having said this, that there is a major transition that's taking place. I think some instructors naturally are really good at online education and it wasn't an issue at all. I think for others, it's been really difficult, and I've probably been somewhere in the middle, trying to figure out all of this online. It's been a learning experience for everyone. I think the students have been patient with us. I think faculty have tried to be patient with students and helping them get the technology and helping them understand the technology and understanding how to learn in this new environment that probably wasn't possible before. So I think everyone's had to be flexible on all sides. I think from a grading perspective, most faculty have been very accommodating. I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but I will, right? I think I've been much more lenient in my grading policy this semester, just because I don't know what students are going through. And so I've tried to be very lenient. I gave out a lot better grades than I traditionally do. And I wanted to just be someone that's supporting them instead of hurting them during this COVID-19 challenge that we've all been faced with. At the same time, I'm not going to be critical of other instructors who are maybe more difficult, but I think we've seen that both at the faculty level and at the administration level. We've seen a lot of schools who have gone on and said students can have the option of going pass or fail if they want to as well. And so a lot of students are choosing to go pass or fail. That's been here at Utah State and most of the public schools and private schools in the state of Utah. Students can choose to get a passing grade instead of a fail, so it doesn't, or pass or fail instead of a letter grade, so it doesn't affect their GPA so much.
Yeah, that sounds like a positive. I mean, I guess to talk about maybe a silver lining that's happened amongst the COVID-19, it sounds like, everyone's kind of focusing on what's most important and giving everyone a little bit of slack, which I think is, it's kind of a good thing overall. But
So do you feel like, it seems like in the midst of chaos, we either shrink or we kind of rise to the occasion. What would you say are some efficiencies, maybe some new procedures, policies? What are some things that you feel like the business school has learned or is learning that is probably going to carry on to the future?
Well, I think the Huntsman School has always had a huge focus on students. That's different than a lot of your top tier universities where it's focused more on research. I think the Huntsman School does a good job of balancing research and students, and that focus on the students has been consistent throughout this process. So I've been very, very impressed with all the changes, everything that's going on. The focus on students has stayed the same, right? And just because we've switched from an in-class environment to an online environment, to see that focus, I think has been very encouraging for me and a lot of students. Now, that's not to say there's not challenges or then there's not issues and there's not problems, because there's always going to be when you go through something like this. And we've definitely had challenges that we've faced. One that comes to mind is we did a survey of our students and said, how many of you have a good connection link at home? And I forget the exact percentages, but more students responded that they didn't have the technological capabilities at home than I thought. And so there was a percentage of our student population that we need to figure out how to get them a good internet connection, how to get them a good computer where they could run all of these, because I guess traditionally they've just been going to the computer labs on campus, right? And not spending that cost, because as we all know, as students, we don't have a lot of excess funds. And so we've had to be aware of that. There's other students who, they get kicked out of their dorm. All of a sudden they're back under mom and dad's roof for our traditional freshman and sophomore. And that's not always the easiest environment to be in. Think of going back to living under mom and dad's roof. You've got brother and sisters running around you. You're trying to study. You've got your mom yelling at you to make your bed and take out the trash, right? It's a whole different shift in the learning experience. And so we've had to be aware of that as well. And then of course there's the financial considerations as well, right? From the school level, it's going to affect us financially. From the program administration level, it's going to affect us. And then of course, for our students, it's going to affect them. A lot of them had part-time jobs when everyone was quarantined, right? They lost their income. Food's an issue. and paying for tuition and fees and others. Those are all major issues that we need to work through.
So do you, I mean, obviously you can't predict this or anything, but do you feel like moving into next semester, you feel like the numbers are going to go down? I mean, are kids going to take a semester off? Is it, I mean,
yeah, that's a great question. We have seen reports from across the nation where the university relies heavily on an international student body. They're being hit really hard because imagine if you're a student from China or Korea or Europe, and now you're basically quarantined at home and there's no travel going on. And so those schools are really getting hit financially because the student enrollment is going down. They make a lot of money off the international tuition rates, which are traditionally different than in-state or in-country tuition rates. And so those schools are really hurting. Here, we're in a little bit different position. We don't know how it's going to play out yet. But our initial numbers coming in are that the freshmen are actually coming in. In fact, we're in front of where we were last year, which is all good news as far as enrollment. Where we are running into issues is the school, the university makes a lot of money off of football season, right? What's going to happen there? March Madness, Utah State was in the tournament, right? We were going to get a lot of money from March Madness, NCAA. None of that money's coming in. We have a number of missionaries that for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints who were out on missions. Now they're coming home early. That's somewhat of a bump for us, but a lot of them are, if they've already come to school, even though freshman numbers are up, it's the sophomores and juniors that are saying, well, that was a pain to go online last year. Maybe I'll take a gap year, or maybe I'll take a semester off and see what happens. And so that enrollment is actually down. At the same time, the university has promised scholarships to a lot of those missionaries for academic reasons. Those students seem to be coming. We need to honor that. And then those who don't have scholarships are saying, well, I'm not going to pay to have a compromised semester experience. So they're taking it off. So, and then we've got the incoming freshmen we promised scholarships to. You've got your athletes we promised scholarships to. The NCAA said they could have a 5th-year experience. So now we got to scholarship them again. And so it's coming into this like really difficult environment that I don't think we know the answers to for some time, if that makes sense.
Tell me overall, I mean, we've all learned a lot of things. We're still in the midst of this. Certainly we haven't figured it all out, but what would you say from your perspective is the most important thing that you've learned or that the school's learned through the last couple months?
I continue to think about that student focus. I think that's been really important. I think a lot of times we have meetings. I think a lot of times we do things with students that maybe aren't necessarily value added. And this has helped us to focus and realize what's most important with our students and with our meetings and with the way we run things and with efficiencies. I think a lot of times Zoom meetings, although sometimes they're better and sometimes they're worse, sometimes they're even actually more effective in this type of environment than when we're all sitting in a room and there's a dominant personality that's kind of taking over. And so it brings out new elements to the relationship between colleagues. I would carry that same scenario over to student and classroom experience. I think it allows different personalities to shine. It allows us to focus on what's important. It allows us to have relationships with students that we couldn't have otherwise. It's allowed us in some ways to kind of flip the classroom where instead of me being up on a board and writing out the answers and teaching through PowerPoint slides, I can put that online and I can say, learn that on your own. And then I can meet one-on-one with students like this and say, okay, what did you learn? What didn't you learn? Let's focus on those things and actually enhance the student experience. And so we're discovering some of those ways to make higher education, which traditionally isn't the most effective and has a lot of bureaucracy and in some ways is a dinosaur in responding to market pressures, and we're able to find new ways to be effective and efficient and increase the learning experience for our students.
Oh, that's great. And we've seen that a lot in our practice with our clients. You know, it's been interesting. Most of our clients are retired, or at least a good chunk of them are in that age group. And so we've done a lot of Zoom meetings with them. It's been fascinating that as they become more accustomed to it, it's actually brought some efficiencies into it, in that they're sitting in front of their computer. When we're asking them specific numbers and figures and things, they can just look them up instead of, oh, we forgot to bring those. And yeah, it's been really interesting to see how initially we thought, man, this is going to be horrible. People want to sit across the desk from us, and they certainly still do. But it's been interesting to see that many people have been fine with it. Again, it's created some efficiencies which we didn't know. And so I think for us, this whole experience is forcing us to figure out what's really important, and then how do we adapt? Because if
Yeah.
we don't adapt, we're gonna die. And it's great to hear the universities doing that. We applaud you guys. Again, we both went there, loved our experience, appreciate very much that school, and are excited for you guys in the future. But we really appreciate your time, Chad, and good luck, man.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me, and good luck. And if there's anything I can ever do for you, let me know.